Okay, I know at least one person in here is going to what we call FNCE, the Food and Nutrition Conference and Exhibition of the American Dietetic Association, which is a timely thing since that's one of the things we're going to be talking about today. Professional associations and why be a member. Why do I sit down once a year and write out a check for $250 to be a member of ADA? Why do I sit down and write out a check for, I'm trying to think, how much was your registration to go to the meeting? It's around $100 or something like that. Yeah, whatever. Being a member of a professional association costs you something. But what do you get in return? And that's what I want us to talk about today. Now, I'm going to talk specifically and most about the American Dietetic Association because, number one, that's the largest association of food and nutrition professionals in the world, and secondly, it's an association that I've been actively involved with for over 30 years and one that is near and dear to my heart. There are things that we choose to spend time with and on because they make a significant impact in our lives. You can tell what a person is passionate about and how they spend their time and how they spend their money. I want you to think about what are things that you are passionate about that if somebody looked at your calendar or watched you for a while and watched how you spend your time, or if they looked at your bank book or your credit card statement and looked at how you spend your money, what would that say about you? What would that tell someone about your passions? If I were to look back over my professional career, not talking about personal things here, that's another listing, but if I were to look back at how I've spent my professional time and money, this organization is where I have grown up, if you will, professionally, and it's a very, very important organization to me. So that's why I'm going to focus on it a little bit, because I know it best. Headquarters are located in Chicago, down on Riverside Plaza in downtown Chicago. If you are ever in the Windy City, it's a great place to visit. And I would encourage you to actually find where the headquarters is of ADA and go in and knock on the door, say, I want to take a tour. They would be happy to provide a tour for you. And there's a 1-800 number there at the bottom of the screen that you see that also is helpful as you move through your career that you might need to be calling them for some reason. So just put that up there for your information. But the mission of the Professional Association is to serve the public through the promotion of optimal nutrition, health, and well-being. If you look at any professional association, one of the first things that you ought to look at is what is the stated mission of that organization? Why are they in business? What is it that they are about? And for the American Dietetic Association, their mission is serving the public and promoting optimal nutrition. If you also then look at another thing that organizations often have is a vision. And when we talk about an organizational vision, we're talking about, in the best possible world, what is it that we would like to see happening in relation to the members of our association? And that's the idea of promoting optional nutrition and well-being for all people. And they do that by advocating for the members of this association. So ADA is in business to take care of its members, to promote its members, to provide for its members continuing education and other things that they might need in order to help them be successful. It also talks about how do we go about doing this as ADA members. We serve the public by doing a whole list of things that you see here, offering preventive and wellness services, medical nutrition therapy in a variety of settings, food service, business, research, education, practice, and all of those sorts of things. So it gives you a little taste of what dietitians do. Another thing that is characteristic of a profession and a professional association is that it often has a code of ethics by which its members practice, And you can click on the link here if you go to these slides after class, and it actually will take you to the Code of Ethics for the American Dietetic Association. Now, we're not going to spend time looking at that right now, but I want you to know that it exists, and it talks about the principles of dietetics practice and what it is we believe, how we practice, what is considered to be a conflict of interest, for example, or when would it be appropriate for a dietetics professional not to get involved in something. And so sometimes we might feel in our professional life that we need some guidelines about whether or not we should dabble in something. This might be a place where you might want to go and just read what it says about dietetics and dietetic professionals and what they believe. I might mention that this does have some teeth to it, if you will, that if a dietitian is found to be practicing unprofessionally, there are actions which can be taken to boot the person out of the American Dietetic Association. So this isn't just something nice that you print and hang on your wall that says, gee, we have a code of ethics, but it really is something that can be used to protect the profession. As I mentioned, why do I bother to fly to Philadelphia this weekend? Why do I sit down once a year and write out a check to be a member of a professional association? Some people say, well, it looks good on my resume. Well, that might be one reason to join a professional association, but I hope you do it for more reasons than just to make your resume look good. Number one at the top of my list in looking at professional associations is the idea of networking with other people. When I go to Philadelphia this weekend, I'm going to be rubbing shoulders with anywhere from 10 to 12,000 other dietitians. That's pretty amazing. Nowhere else would I be able to get together with that many of my professional peers and find out what's going on, find out what they're doing, what they're involved in, and just, you know, network, catch up, find out what's going on, meet people. I cannot tell you, I've said it probably 12 times already in this class, that's how neat things happen professionally, is by people that you know. And neat opportunities open up just because of people that you know and you've networked with. The FNCE meeting, as we call it, the Annual Food and Nutrition Conference and Exhibition, is a wonderful experience. Continuing education opportunities are provided. Exhibits are there, people who sell things to dietitians, whether they're supplements or textbooks or who knows what. There are huge exhibits there that you can go through and talk to vendors and look at new products that are coming out. So there's all sorts of fun things that you can do at a professional meeting like that. Another thing that I think I showed you the last time we met is the website of the association, and the fact that this is just jam-packed with information and things that you can wander around and look at that we won't take time to do today. I wish we had time to spend more time with it specifically. And then publications. Some of those things are things that you're going to be using in different classes as you move through your training. And also professionally, when you're out working, there are patient education materials and other things that you can purchase from your association. And if you're a member, you get it cheaper, which is always a good thing. One of the things that also is a little bit unique about how ADA operates is that when you become a member of your national association, that automatically makes you a member of your state dietetic association. In fact, that's the only way you can become a member of your state dietetic association. It comes as a package. You can't say, well, I don't want to be an ADA member, but I want to join the Kansas Dietetic Association. Well, it doesn't work like that. You have to be a national ADA member before you can be a member of your state affiliate. And so that's a great reason right there. You can find information about career opportunities. There's libraries. There's linked to websites. And the bullet toward the bottom of the screen surely might be one that you're interested in, are the scholarships that are provided by the association. We have K-State students every year who get scholarships from ADA. And so that's a cool thing. And then there are also grants that they provide for us to do other types of activities. If you remember in the first lecture when we talked about the history of our profession, we talked about different pieces of legislation that made it possible for dietitians and nutritionists to get employed in new areas. And that happened because laws had been passed that required the services of a food and nutrition professional. We feel that this is so important that ADA also has an office in Washington, D.C. They have a paid staff who live and work in Washington, and they frequently are on the Hill, as we call it, lobbying members of Congress, talking to members of Congress, providing information, and frequently you will see ADA's president or other people like that going to Washington to provide testimony before Congress on different issues that relate to food and nutrition issues in the United States. So we feel that it's important enough that we actually have paid staff and a very nice office in DC in order to facilitate that. So there's all sorts of programs that go on at the federal level, which thank goodness ADA is there to provide that kind of networking on your behalf. And the thing that really gets me, I guess, let me get on my soapbox a minute, is that there are a lot, there are people who say, well, I'm just not going to bother to pay my association dues. I just can't afford it, or I just don't want to be bothered. Yet those people benefit from ADA members who do pay their dues and who do make it possible for us to have a Washington office and that sort of thing. So I guess the idea of freeloading really bugs me. And if you are going to be benefiting from what happens at the national level with your professional association, you ought to be paying your dues and being a member. So that's my 2-second spiel about that. Publications that come to you because you're a paying member include the Journal of the American Dietetic Association, the ADA Times, which is a really fun read and a really informative newspaper type of publication. Your affiliate newsletter is your State Dietetic Association newsletter, and then other types of things that they do as well. One of the things that I want to take a moment and show you here is something that is on the ADA website. The link to it is, but it's on YouTube. And this is about 6 minutes that talks about the American Dietetic Association and their media representatives and what they do. So let me see if I can push the right buttons here and get this going.
Nutritionist and a dietitian, and what do you recommend for people with diabetes?
A registered dietitian is someone who has been credentialed by the American Dietetic Association, taken a college degree level Bachelor of Science course in nutrition, and has met specific criteria and sat for an exam, a certifying exam.
Registered dietitian Suzanne Carroll joins us live in the studio this morning. What is the difference between a registered dietitian and a nutritionist?
Great question. Registered dietitians are the only nationally recognized food and nutrition science experts.
So they have more training, more
That's
education.
right. For nutritionists, there is no standard of education or training, so just about anybody can call themselves a nutritionist, whereas we have degrees in nutrition science, and we're really skilled in interpreting that science and translating it into practical plans for people.
We're closing out our series, Living Large in America, with some concrete steps you can take to fight obesity.
4 years later, she prepares 100% organic meals for over 40 families in New York City.
People want that magic pill that doesn't take any effort, doesn't take any dietary change, doesn't take any extra physical activity.
From ABC News. This is World News Tonight.
Dietitian Cynthia Sass believes they're wasting their money and in some cases risking their health.
You don't know if what's in there is what it says. You don't know if it's going to be safe. You don't know if it's going to work. You don't know what kind of side effects it's going to have.
Well, we're with somebody who's going to help us make some healthy choices in this sea of supersized fast food menus. She's a spokesperson for the American Dietetic Association and a registered dietitian. It's Susan Moore. Hey, Susan.
Hi. Clearly, you've made your resolution by now. You want to have a healthy 2007, many of you, but how do you stick to it? Our dietitian, Tara Guidance now, has all the answers for us. Tara, thanks so much for being with us today. Welcome. I'm Billy Fly.
Bonnie Tobe-Dix is a registered dietitian and a nutritionist. She's a spokesperson for the American Dietetic Association.
From CBS News, it's The Early Show.
Here to discuss the changes is Elisa Zai, a registered dietitian and a spokeswoman for the American Dietetic Association.
But too many of us still can't quite figure out what's in the food we're eating. So we've got our friend, registered dietitian Elisa Zai, a spokeswoman for the American Dietetic Association, here to explain this morning.
Registered dietitian Elisa Zai is a spokeswoman for the American Dietetic Association. So what are some of the big health factors involved in omega-3?
Well, omega-3s are very, very important.
It's important to understand that dietary supplements will never replace a good, healthy diet and lifestyle program.
I brought my 4 favorites. So this one is the American Dietetic Association, Healthy Cooking Across America.
Okay.
And I like this because it's, dietitian recipes.
Sure,
right away, I know there's nutrition information in there. And in fact, studies show that kids do better in school, they do better behavior-wise if they get a good breakfast. So it really is important to make sure that they have something.
Registered dietitian Marissa Moore says healthy bacteria already live in our intestinal system. She suggests adding a daily dose of probiotics to aid in food digestion and to help ward off harmful bacteria.
This morning is registered dietitian and ADA spokesperson Jeannie Mablue. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
There are, I think they said 10,000 people here for this conference. Give us a little idea of what's happening.
Yes, the American Dietetic Association for the first time is holding their annual nutrition conference at the beautiful Hawaii Convention Center. It's actually the largest gathering of food and health professionals in the world.
This is CBS World News, live at 11.
Pat Vasconcellos of the American Dietetic Association is concerned that consumers will look at Invega that way.
Joining us this morning is the chairman of the American Dietetic Association Foundation Board, Neva Cochran. Good morning, Neva. Thank you for joining us.
The American Dietetic Association Foundation has joined together with the General Mills Foundation and the President's Council for Physical Fitness. We provide $10,000 grants a year to community organizations across the country to promote physical activity and good nutrition among children.
It is National Nutrition Month. Our friend, Don Jackson-Blattner, registered dietitian, is here to talk with us.
How do you spot a fad diet? Well, I have 5 ways to spot a fad diet. The first is any plan that promises rapid or quick weight loss. That's a red flag right there.
You can get a great registered dietitian in your local area by going to the American Dietetic website. It's eatright.org. You plug in your zip code and you'll get a whole slew of qualified registered dietitians that can help you.
No, we don't want to watch it again. Help. There we go. I tell you what, you as the Lone Ranger could not get that kind of publicity. No way, no how. But that is people's dues at work, putting the registered dietitian out there as the professional, you know, that the public needs to go to. And so I love that, and it's so fun because there's people shown in that thing that are friends of mine that I have met because of my involvement in ADA. But, you know, if you were the lone dietitian in a community and trying to help people understand what it is that you do and what kind of services that you could provide is one thing. But if they see a registered dietitian on the Today Show or on the evening news or whatever, because ADA has helped position dietitians in that way, what a fabulous thing. Another great benefit of membership involvement. Different categories, won't spend a lot of time on this, but associate members or student members, you know, membership is what, $50-something a year. It's really worth it. And returning students means people who've been out and worked for a while and then maybe they're back in graduate school, and we all know graduate students are poor, and so they give you a break on your dues if you're back in graduate school for a while and get a little bit cheaper dues there. You can go online and join, and I think some of you probably have already done that sort of thing, and I applaud that. Just a little bit about the structure. The board of directors are people who are elected by the membership to be officers in the association. Officers in ADA are not paid. Their expenses are paid if they need to go to meetings or represent people in some way, but they don't receive any kind of salary to do that. However, in Chicago, in the office, the people that answer the phone and run our headquarters office, those are paid staff who work for us. The House of Delegates is something that's sort of like the American Congress. There's so many delegates from each state, depending on how many dietitians live in that state. For example, Kansas has about between 700 and 800 dietitians that live in the state of Kansas, and that gives us the right to have one representative in the House of Delegates. Some states that are huge, like California or Texas or, you know, Florida, Ohio, New York, some of those that have a lot of dietitians may have 2 or 3 delegates in the House, so it's based on the number of people that live in the state. And the House of Delegates kind of runs the association business. They're the ones who pass policies and procedures and the budget. And also, if you ever read a position of the American Dietetic Association, that's another thing that's on the website. What are ADA's stances on this or that? That's decided by the House of Delegates. I've already referred sometimes to dietetic practice groups, or DPGs. Once you become an ADA member, then you can become a member of one of these subgroups. There's, I believe, 29 different DPGs that you can be a member of for every kind of area of practice that you can think of. And they are really wonderful ways to network and meet people on a smaller level. Some other things that we've alluded to in some other lectures: the ADA Foundation, or the people who give scholarships. The National Center for Nutrition and Dietetics is the outreach for the public. If people call ADA with a nutrition question, that's who they'll get referred to. We talked a little bit last week about the Commission on Dietetic Registration. They're the folks who handle credentialing. They're the people who do that exam that we talked about last week. The Commission on Accreditation for Dietetics Education, or CADE, are the people that accredit dietetic education programs like the one that some of you are in. So they're the accrediting people. And I want to zip on through some of this. Let me show you the CDR website, because that's something that we've referred to just a little bit. I think it's taking a little while to load. There we go. This is an important website because it does talk about the RD exam and the processes about that. Also, it talks about certifications and licensure. For example, if you were graduating and you were getting ready to move off somewhere and you wanted to know, does that state require me to be licensed? Well, you can go to the CDR website and you can look up, let's say that you're moving to Delaware. Well, you can find there that's who to contact to find out about licensure in the state. So there are just so many different kinds of assistance on the web that relates to dietetics. So, why should students bother to become a member of ADA? I think as you look at the goals of this association, that they're trying to really focus dietitians to be leaders in food and nutrition and really influence policy and all of that. So it just makes sense for you early on to get involved. I want to mention a few other professional associations, and this is just a small list of different ones, and every single one of these has a student membership category. Most of them run in the area of about $50 a year. But for example, the Society for Nutrition Education, and all of these links are active. If you want to go to their website, you can learn about the society, and you can also click on their information where it talks about how to join, and you can find out more about what the association is about. The School Nutrition Association is one that I've alluded to before. This is for people who work in child nutrition programs. And it used to be called the American School Food Service Association. Now it's called the School Nutrition Society. Once again, very easy for you to join as a student. Here's the American College of Sports Medicine. For those of you that are more into the kinesiology, exercise physiology aspect, once again, they've got a great student section that you can become a member of and receive many of the same kind of benefits that we've talked about in belonging to others. Here's the American Public Health Association, because I know some of you are interested in learning more about public health and working in that particular area. Same thing, great things. If some of you are interested in more of the food aspect of things, this is the Institute of Food Technologists. They have a great student section and some great journals that you can get as a member. Here's another one that's a little bit further afield, but is a wonderful place with a great student section, the American Institute of Food and Wine. So the list just goes on and on. If you go back and look in the textbook, the Profession of Dietetics textbook, there's a whole chapter in there that's like this, and there's a more extensive listing of professional associations that you can be a member of. What questions do you have at this point in time? The silence is deafening. I'm so glad I've answered all your questions.
How specific do the subgroups get?
That's a good question. Let's go back and let me get out of here and go back and look at the ADA website, because you can see the listing. Let me see if I can get back up here. Let's see if I can get to the link here. If you go to the ADA website, and over here on the left side it says ADA groups. We'll click on that, and then we'll go to 2007 and 2008 practice groups. Here we go. Clinical Nutrition Management, and it describes here managers who direct clinical nutrition programs, consultant dietitians in healthcare. These are folks particularly who work in rural America and service lots of different small hospitals, nursing homes, that sort of thing. Diabetes care and education. Dietetic educators and practitioners, that's people like me who teach dietetic students. Dietetic technicians in practice. Remember we talked in the career ladder that the techs are the people, there's dietary managers and then there's techs. The techs have their own practice group. Dietetics in developmental and psychiatric disorders. You may never have thought about dietitians who work in mental health, because people who have some mental challenges or developmental challenges have some real issues. One of our most outstanding graduates is Joan Medlin. Joan lives out in Portland, Oregon. She graduated from K-State, and for a long time her picture was hanging out here in our lobby because she received a big award from us last year. She has a son who is Down syndrome. And she is so passionate about working with Down syndrome people, that she's started a national organization. She has a newsletter for people. She won a public advocacy award because of her work with people who have Down syndrome. That's an example of people with a developmental disability who have special challenges. And she's written a book on nutrition for people with Down syndrome. It's the only book that I know of on the market that really addresses their issues. Dietetics and Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, which is interesting because often folks who are in rehab for after a stroke or something like that really have some special challenges. Dietitians in business and communication. These are folks who work more with corporations and food companies and public relations and marketing and PR and those sorts of things. Talk about a dynamic group of people to be involved with. Dietitians in nutrition support. I think we've talked about dietitians who work with very, very critically ill people who cannot eat by mouth. They have to be fed through the veins. So very specific, very high level type of dietetic practice. Those people have their own group. Here's one of my favorite, food and culinary professionals. These are the foodies. These are people who are chefs, personal chefs, or they work for food companies, or they just flat out love food and cooking. The cool thing that they do someday, gosh, when I retire, I guess, and have time, they do culinary tours all over the world. They've been to Tuscany, they've been to France, whatever. Must be nice. Maybe I'll do it when I retire. Gerontological nutritionists are folks who work with older Americans, we've talked about that, or older people, not just Americans. HIV and AIDS. Folks have some real nutritional challenges, and people who work with that group of people have their own practice group. Hunger and environmental nutrition. As you see here in the description, they are really into sustainable agriculture, making food and water accessible to people, and some of those issues that are sort of new, I think, for dietitians to be paying attention to. Management and food and nutrition systems, those are people particularly in healthcare or any kind of larger institutions that work in the management ranks. Medical nutrition practice, those are clinical dietitians. Nutrition education for the public. Nutrition educators of health professionals, those are people who teach nutrition in medical school or nursing school or dental school. Nutrition entrepreneurs, hot group. They are people who are into business for themselves. And boy, they know how to operate. They are people, they look at their specialty groups. They have authors, speakers, coaches, corporate health, business and technology, internet, and private practice. So this practice group has practice groups that really are very specific to the needs of their members. Nutrition and complementary care. God bless these people. These are folks that are maybe other folks go, they're on the fringe. They're into Eastern medicine. They're into whatever, you know, alternative medicine. That some people really are interested in something outside the scope of traditional medicine. And so we look at things like acupuncture, we look at things like meditation, we look at use of herbs that we're learning, especially I think from Eastern medicine, a lot that we haven't been very open to in the past. And I'm really glad to see dietitians stepping out and saying, you know, there are other things besides medicine as we know it in this country. Oncology, working with people who have cancer. That's a tough area because often folks who have cancer don't get better. And so taking care nutritionally of someone that you know isn't going to get well is a challenge. But how do you keep that person nourished and comfortable as long as they possibly can be? And we also know that, you know, it's not all doom and gloom. I'm a cancer survivor. There are people who come out on the other side of cancer and it really changes their life, it changes their lifestyle. And so, you know, oncology is a huge area that I don't know that we totally know the impact that nutrition can have on cancer. Pediatric nutrition for people who want to work with children. Now, when we think of pediatrics, we typically think of children who are ill and who have, you know, problems, because working with sick kids is a real challenge. It's challenging working with a child anyway because they're growing and they have constantly changing nutritional needs. But when you overlay illness on top of the fact that they're a growing child, then it makes it even more complicated. So pediatric nutrition, they have their own practice group. Public health, community nutrition, renal dietitians, people who work with folks who have kidney disorders, research, DPG, and these are people, a lot of them either work in university research or medical center research, and really doing some cutting edge things. Sports, cardiovascular, and wellness nutritionists. If you are interested in wellness, fitness, sports, that sort of sports medicine, that sort of thing, this group is so cool. Well, they call themselves SCAN, and they have just some fabulous training and networking opportunities. The vegetarian nutritionists have gotten together, and they work with issues of people who are, you know, there's a whole array of vegetarians. There's vegans who absolutely have nothing to do with anything animal, and then there's different gradations of being a vegetarian. So those folks have their own practice group. There's the weight management DPG, people who really specifically work on weight loss issues and some of those challenges. And finally, last but not least, women's health and reproductive nutrition. What a laundry list. You know, when you read that kind of list and you go, my gosh, dietetics and nutrition isn't just working in a hospital with people who are sick. This gives you a little glimpse of the whole world of dietetics practice. It's absolutely huge. And when you go to meetings and you get involved with some of these subgroups, it's very exciting because these are people who are really into their subject and into their topic. So I hope, and each one of these groups has their own website, so you can click on this link, go to their website, look at stuff, and learn more about it. Great question. That was maybe more than you wanted to know. Other questions about professional membership. It starts even here while you're a student, being a member of the Student Dietetic Association, being a member of the Nutrition Interest Group, being a member of student groups here while you're a student. And it's really interesting because I have followed students kind of through their careers, and people who were active and involved as a student tend to be people who continue to be active and involved professionally after they leave school. And people who sit in their room and don't get involved in anything while they're a student tend to be people who sit in their home and don't get involved in anything after they graduate either. There's a real connection there. So I would really encourage you. I know your time is limited, you know, and if you're a member of every student group that moves, that's not good either because you can't do it all and you need to study sometime and, you know, have a life. So pick carefully what group you want to be involved in, or a couple of groups, but you really begin to learn leadership skills. You get to meet other people. Sometimes you get to travel to neat places and do fun things, and you need to start doing it now as a student and then continue that professionally. One of our greatest challenges in professional associations is the fact that these are volunteer things. And as people's lives become more and more crazy, and you've got spouses and children and your job and, you know, your life, and you think, how do I find time to be involved professionally? If every one of us did a little piece, then it wouldn't be a burden on everybody. But often in these types of professional groups and volunteer groups, we find that it's the same people over and over again being the leaders because other people just don't want to get involved. You probably see that in organizations on campus, that it tends to be the same people who sort of rise to the leadership positions and others just kind of sit back and don't do much. So I don't know what the answer to that is, because our lives only seem to get crazier and more busy as years go by. But I really firmly believe that involvement in these kinds of things just enrich your life so much. Some of the absolute best friends I have in my life have come from my involvement in this association. And when we go to this meeting, like in Philadelphia, it's like a family reunion, because sometimes this is the one time each year that we see each other. In the 30-something years I've been a dietitian, I think I've missed this meeting twice. That's how passionate I am about going, and that's how much I love going. And that's why we require our coordinated program students to go once while you're a student, hoping that you'll get the bug. We don't require our DPD students to do it, those that are going on to an internship, because the logical time for you to go maybe is during your internship, so we hope your internship requires you to go. But it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Last year we were in Hawaii. How cool. Had to save your pennies for that, but it was a beautiful time. This year Philadelphia, next year Chicago. Fun place. Hope you save your pennies and think about going. Questions about anything? Have a good week. Have a fun fall break.